I'm Dan McGrath, and this is Pilot After 50. In this series, I'm going to share some of my perspectives on getting a private pilot's license after the age of 50.
In this episode, we're going to look at how becoming a pilot also means becoming a perpetual student. I was vaguely aware of the need for checkout flights, and I'd heard about biannual flight reviews, but I didn't really know what I was in for until I got my private pilot certificate. Before we get into that, let me direct your attention to my website, danmcgrath.net. If you like what I'm doing here with Pilot After 50, maybe you'll enjoy some of my other endeavors too. This YouTube channel was originally all about politics, but during the dark times, I started posting about other interests as well. One of them, I went to school for audio engineering and worked for a while in a recording studio. Now, that was a long time ago, but I still enjoy tinkering with audio production at home. Some examples of that are in another YouTube series I'm calling Uncle Dan's Synth Shop. That's set up here as a separate playlist, and you can find links to it at danmcgrath.net. You'll also find some books I've authored. Right now, I want to showcase my debut fantasy fiction novel, The Storm Tower. Uneasy alliances are tested when magi of factious clans have to shelter together in a mysterious old watchtower. While a deadly storm rages outside, intrigue and murderous plots ensue. But even the tower itself isn't what it seems, and dark forces are closing in. Find out who can survive their unplanned stay in the Storm Tower. I like to say the Storm Tower is old-fashioned fantasy fiction without all the woke. It's available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and pretty much anywhere you can buy books. Or you can find out more about the Storm Tower and my other books at danmcgrath.net. Now, I've heard many times that a private pilot certificate is a license to learn, and I always thought that was both a poetic and lofty notion. I didn't realize it's also pretty literal. The day I received my temporary private pilot certificate, I was relieved. Finally, I'm done with these stupid maneuvers I'll never perform in real life, I thought. Finally, I'm done paying instructors to ride along when I'd rather have a friend in the co-pilot seat. Heck, instead of paying an instructor to ride along, maybe my friend would even pitch in for gas. No more studying the federal airman regulations. No more tests. Finally, I'm free to fly.
Not so fast, Airman.
My check ride was the most nerve-wracking test of my life, and when I managed to pass it, I thought I was done with steep turns and fancy landings, at least until I decided to work on my instrument rating. But not long after, I found myself in the middle of another check ride. This one's called a check-out, which is a common requisite before flying a new kind of airplane, but at the flying club where I'm doing the checkout, it's basically identical to the FAA-required check ride, also known as a practical test or practical exam. My actual check ride was one of the biggest ordeals of my life, and now I already have to do it again? I trained in Cessna 172s, but they were S models and fairly modern. The one and only Cessna 172 at my new flying club is a 1969 Model K that's had a slow speed kit installed, changing its stall speed and other characteristics from what's published in the POH. Besides flying with the club instructor to once again prove I could perform all the maneuvers I had just done on my check ride, I also had to complete a written exam about this particular Cessna model before the club's insurance company would let me fly alone, or carry passengers for that matter. The club has 5 other airplanes, all different, and there will be both a written test and at least one checkout flight for each of those that I decide I want to fly. Maybe more than one. Well, those are just some initial examples. Pilots, whether commercial or private, are perpetual students for as long as they want to maintain a license. Now, naturally, commercial pilots have even more continuing education and exams ahead of them, but even private pilots need to be prepared for regular evaluations. I don't know if this is common or if I'm just prickly, but I don't really enjoy being evaluated while performing complex tasks. No, let me rephrase that. I hate it. I never seem to perform to the height of my ability when I know I'm under scrutiny, but there's no avoiding it. After my third-class medical was due for renewal, I decided to switch over to the basic med program, which doesn't require physical exams as often and essentially lets private pilots keep flying as long as they can maintain a driver's license. See, at my age, a third-class medical certificate is only good for 2 years. Pilots under 40 only have to turn their head and cough for an AME every 5 years. Basic med requires a less intensive physical examination every 4 years. The limitations placed on pilots under basic med won't affect me unless I decide I want to fly some beefier airplanes over 18,000 feet, over 200 knots, or if I want to be able to carry more than 6 passengers. None of those look likely in my near future. So for me, this switch was a no-brainer, but it does have a catch. I have to take online training and complete a written test about aviation medical factors every 24 months. Pilot certificates don't expire, but another test I have to complete every 2 years to maintain a valid certificate is a biannual flight review. And that's pretty much another check ride, but any certified flight instructor can conduct the test. It doesn't have to be a designated pilot examiner like for the official practical test. Besides all of this, a pilot certificate is barely a license. It's more like a container for endorsements and ratings. What if I want to fly in bad weather? I'll need to complete an instrument course and pass a new, more complicated check ride to get my instrument rating. What if I want to fly a faster plane? High performance endorsement required. Retractable landing gear and a constant speed prop? I'll probably need a complex aircraft endorsement. There is literally no end to the training and testing required to maintain a valid and current airman certificate. And all this I'm talking about is just for private pilots. It's even more rigorous for commercial pilots who can expect even more testing on top of all this, and the practical exams for commercial pilots are also even more difficult with additional maneuvers and tighter margins for error. Maintaining a private pilot certificate isn't like getting a driver's license, where if you can pass a pretty loose vision test every 4 years, you just keep on rolling. You don't need additional training and testing to drive a different make or model of car. If you took your road test in a Buick, you'll be allowed to drive Chevys and Teslas too. You don't even need an endorsement to drive a stick shift, although these days so few people know how to do it, an endorsement probably should be required. But I digress. Flying is another matter. Differences, big and small, between airplane manufacturers and models will generally require at least a checkout flight, if not a full-on formal endorsement. Keeping a current pilot's license is a pretty big commitment that will require time, continued practice, and a lot of the magic substance that keeps planes in the air. Money. Next time, I'll show you around the hangars at my new flying club, and we'll take a look at the vintage Cessna 172K that I'm flying. It's older than me. It'll be a good time.
Thanks for checking out Pilot After 50. To see what else I get up to, also check out danmcgrath.net. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you like this video, let me know with a thumbs up. If you didn't like it so much, let me know how I could do it better in the comments. Thanks again for stopping by, and have a great day.